And then, like, I'm watching and I'm like, hee hee hee. I'm such a dork. Hello, everyone. My name is Bethany, and this is my channel, Thani's Thoughts. So, today for this vlog, I am going to be discussing episode 5 through 8 of the Bridgerton series that is on Netflix, that is based on the same name of the book series by Julia Quinn. And the first season mostly revolves around the first book, which is The Duke and I have read up to 5 books of the Bridgerton series. So most of this is going to be comparing it to the book, as well as spoilery thoughts of how it compares to the book, as well as spoilery thoughts of how I just think of it in general. And episode 5 and 6 are kind of a doozy, so I'm going to try to keep it short. Here it goes. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to say non-spoilery things first, which is I'm still really liking the series. I think it's still beautifully shot. I think the costuming is still amazing. I think the sets, some of the sets that they have are so pretty and so beautiful. I really have loved that so far. Still really liking the casting. I think the casting is excellent. I'm really liking how they've brought the Queen into all of this. I still really like the writing that they have. And yes, there's still so many really great elements of this show. And it just, honestly, it makes me so excited that other historical romances could get adaptations. Like, it makes me so excited for the potential that this has because of how beautifully shot and how beautifully it's done. Because as much as I am enjoying the Bridgerton series, there's so much good original content out there that I would die and love to see adapted. So I'm still really, really enjoying this. Episode 5 and 6 are kind of some doozies, though. So let's start off with spoilery things. Episode 5. So the Queen is much more involved in this series in general than she is in the book at all. At all. The Queen's not mentioned whatsoever. Which I actually kind of enjoy and is kind of fun to see. And this, I really actually was really sad about the scenes, the Queen scene with the King and his dementia. That was honestly really devastating. As if you have anyone who is a family member who's ever experienced dementia or Alzheimer's, that was a really, really tough scene to see and a little bit heartbreaking. And you get a little bit, just kind of get a little bit more about the Queen in general. Eloise and Penelope not getting along is so upsetting. I was so upset by them not getting along because I love their friendship so much. It made me a little sad. But I really love to see the scene of Simon going to the Queen and telling how the real story of what happened and how he felt was really, really great. I love that scene. And I also love the scene of them confessing feelings to each other. Because feelings have obviously been growing between these two. They just haven't really talked about it up to this point. And so it was finally nice for them to actually say, no, we're on the same page. I'm feeling you, you're feeling me. That was really great and sexy. Very sexy. I will say nothing against the actress, but I don't really like Daphne in the show. I don't know why. I just think she hits a little differently in the show than she does in the book. I think Daphne's a little bit sweeter in the book, a little bit more kind, and that doesn't come across as well, I think, in the show. I don't know if that's and I don't think that's necessarily the actress. I just think maybe that's just the writing of the show. That's just my impression of overall of Daphne. But Simon, he plays such a good Simon. Really, he's nailing the character for me. And not just because he's an attractive man, but I really just think that he understands Simon really well, and I very much appreciate that. And I really love them exploring Benedict's character. I mean, granted, he got a little freaky. Nothing wrong with that, but I kind of love it. I kind of love that. That was really great. It's been really a great addition to the series. Eloise being difficult per the usual is fun to see. Colin's one of my favorite characters from the book series, and he's a good Colin. I just don't think he has enough opportunities to be Colin, if that makes sense. Colin's like the funniest one, And I don't think he's had enough opportunities to be the funny one. Him and Daphne are actually the closest in the book of the siblings. And you don't see that at all, like hardly at all, which was a little bit disappointing because their camaraderie is really, really great to see. And the fact that Colin's settling down so quickly is very surprising because he was like in the book, like running the other direction from marriage far, far away. He wanted nothing to do with it. So him settling down so quick is, I'm not really loving that for Colin, personally, despite Marina. Now, moving on to episode 6. Episode 6, we have the sex montage. The sex montage is finally here. And it was everything. It was so great. Yes, that sex montage, man. Whew. Straight up fire. It was excellent. Well done. It's so funny because I'm like used to reading these things, but not used to like seeing them on screen. So I'm like reading them. I'm like, And then like I'm watching and I'm like, I'm such a dork. Yeah, it makes me giggle like a schoolgirl, which probably says something about myself. But yeah, straight up fire. It definitely shows like their sexual chemistry from the get-go and their attraction for sure. Really dislike Marina in this episode, which is like, it's been kind of hard for me to have Marina in the series in general because she has a very sad story in the books, and her story, you sympathize a little bit more with her story in the show. Not that I necessarily don't want that, but I just, she's ruining some of my favorite ships. I think that's the problem. She's ruining some of the relationships that I know to come in the future, and I think that's why I don't like her. So I'm already biased against her because she's ruining relationships that I'm looking forward to. And her cutting down Penelope was absolutely uncalled for. However, I also kind of like her, and I kind of like her like taking down, granted I think this happened in episode 5, but her taking down that seamstress of Peg was really impressive. I have to like give her props for that. But also I can't like her. I personally can't. But I think people of the show would feel very differently of her, or those who are only familiar with the show, because they're giving a total different side of Marina than what we from the book series know of Marina. So yeah, it's kind of made me feel a little bit conflicted. I didn't really understand why Daphne was having issues with the housekeeper, because from my understanding in the book, Daphne took to being a duchess as far as like running the house extremely well. That wasn't a problem. So yeah, I was a little bit confused. I don't remember that being an issue in the book at all. So that was interesting. I do remember the housekeeper telling her and explaining to her about what happened in his childhood. So that was a good scene to see. That was definitely something from the book. Now we have what is called the scene. The scene. If you don't know what the scene is the sex act done at the end of episode 6, where Simon, if you have the captions on, clearly says, "Wait," and Daphne takes advantage of him from being on top so that he ejaculates in her, because she learns that he has been not doing that during their sex act, and that is what causes pregnancy. It is something that happens in the book. It's problematic in the book for certain reasons, and it's problematic in the show for certain reasons. I don't think either of them are better than the other. I just really wish the scene had been written out entirely. Because, yeah, I kind of wish it had been written out entirely, personally. Because it was problematic in the book, and now it's problematic in the show. We shouldn't have problematic scenes in romance, period. There's enough romance that is sex positive and that is very consensual and has all sorts of good sexy things that we can enjoy without it being problematic. So I don't know why we had to have it. The scene rape, is it assault? Is it I personally have issues with calling it that in itself. And that's obviously, I probably have something to unpack for myself of why that's something I don't want to like call it that. I think terming it rape and assault is always dependent on where you come from and your own background into what you term it as that. I do think that his actions suck. His actions were terrible. He used her ignorance to his advantage. And at the same time, she took advantage of him and did something against his consent. I can't say one is better than the other. I can't say one is a victim and one isn't, and one is the bad guy and one isn't. I think they're both bad guys. I think they both did bad things. And there should be responsibility and accountability on all parts, on both parties. What makes the scene problematic in the book is that he was drunk. That's what made it problematic in the book. What makes it problematic now in the show is they're showing a white woman taking advantage of a black man. And now you're bringing racism into it. Like, I feel like that makes it even 10 times worse than the drunk piece. So again, I really don't think the scene should have happened at all. As well as the response to the scene is what upset me the most in the book, and honestly what probably made what's the reason I rated the book lower than it was. Granted, you should know, I mean, for people who have seen like the discussion throughout the book community about the scene, you should also know that the book, when it was first published, there was like silence about the scene. No one talked about the scene at all because it was published in like 2002, and consent and that kind of thing is not what we discuss and what we talk about in 2020. Which is why I think in 2020 adaptation shouldn't have had the scene at all. And one of the things I really didn't like about it in the book is that there's no real apology, real remorse from either parties, especially not from Daphne in the book. I have a feeling that's what's going to happen in the show here, which is what I really don't like about the scene. Which is what I really don't like about the scene is because in any sort of problematic issues that happen in relationships, there should be sincere, legit attempts to correct that. And that is with an apology. And that is with coming together and really discussing it and really having a conversation about it. And that wasn't done in the book, and I have a feeling it's not going to be done in the show either. I will say I do like how they tied in the scene with what happens with Marina and the announcement from Lady W about Marina's situation. I thought that was tied in really well about like, do the ends justify the means? I thought that was all tied in really, really well, written and very well written. Bravo. I still really don't think the scene should have been in the show whatsoever. There are plenty of romances that have unproblematic themes. So first of all, those should be adapted. Second of all, I don't know if 2020 was ready for this discussion. I don't know if 2020 was ready for this discussion, considering the kind of year it's been. So, I mean, there was definitely power dynamics at play. Him being much more sexually aware and her being more ignorant. In the show, there's definitely race politics at play. The book, there's definitely inebriation, taking advantage of someone who's drunk. Like, that brings in, like, a whole other type of piece to that as well in the book. In the book, it was like a spur-of-the-moment type of decision. In the show, it definitely looks like she planned it that way, which is not a good look for Daphne. A lot of complicated feelings about the scene. Granted, I'm still really enjoying the show, and I still think I'll probably enjoy the ending. I'm going to continue with the next 2 episodes, and that's okay. You can like problematic things. You can enjoy problematic things and still acknowledge them as problematic. And I guess including the scene makes it more true to the book. But I think comparatively, it was written in 2002 or 98 or whenever the heck it was published. It was like early 2000s or late 90s. and now it's 2020 and you decided to include the scene. I think it just would have been better, like, for her to just confront him about, hey, you have been pulling out this whole time. Why don't we talk? Like, they could have still had an argument about it, and that could have been the plot point that made it further, that took it further. Instead of having this really murky, ugly, consensual issue thrown in there. I think there could have been better ways to do it. Was it more true to the book? Yes. But it was a problematic part of the book in the get-go. Now it's a problematic part of the show when it didn't have to be. I think that's my final call on it. I think that's my final stance on it. And now we're left with that. Okay, I think I'm going to take a break because that was a lot. And I still really need to think about it for myself. And then I'm going to go back to it. And we're going to finish the last two, which hopefully are going to be a lot more joyful and happy than these recent two that were really ugly and gross. Ugh. So I will be back. And I'm back. Hello. So I have finished the last two episodes. I actually finished them earlier in the weekend. It is now Sunday, but I haven't had a chance to film anything yet. So I thought I would finally come on and finish and wrap up this vlog that took way longer for me to film and edit than I thought it would because the motivation's been low, guys. The ending for Bridgerton was really great. So let's start with episode 7. And I haven't talked about the boxing enough, so I'm going to talk about that first. I really, really like the addition of boxing, and I love the addition of Will's character too. I just think it was a really great addition to the series that is different from the book, but I was here for all of it. It was nice to see, like, something different. It was nice to see Will being, like, separate of Simon, but Simon really relates to it. I think it makes sense for Simon as a boxer in his character because he's a very physical guy. He's not a very talky, communicative guy. So it makes sense for his character. And I just really love the addition of the boxing storyline. And there were certain key moments that has moved the plot forward as well, which has been just really enjoyable. So I really liked the addition of the boxing and Will's character. I was like half hoping for him to strike the deal with Lord Featherington and like half dreading it because I wanted the family to have money because of Penelope and only really because of Penelope. But other than that, I really, really didn't want Will to do it because I wanted, Will was just like this really honorable, upstanding guy that just wants to provide for his family and do the right thing and, but he has this really tempting offer. Ugh, I really have liked the addition to the series and I just feel like I haven't talked enough about it in this vlog, so I wanted to mention it. So I just want to start with also saying that I was right. These next two episodes have no consequences for Daphne's actions whatsoever. Which honestly just puts a little bit of a damper on the ending for me, which is also what I felt about the Duke and I. That put a damper on the whole story for me, to have that scene and not have really conclusive consequences or regret or remorse. And in fact, it's kind of at the end, I feel like Simon's the one forced to apologize, which he should have done, yes, but also she should have done as well, or had a discussion about it. Neither of those two things were done. So I still have a problem with that. And I still side-eye that really hard. And I think that we're going to have a lot more conversations about consent in books and romance and adaptations and mixed media all across the board. All across the board. This is a discussion that we're going to have to continue having. And why that scene was written to begin with. Anyway, I digress. I won't go into all that. I feel like I've discussed that enough for this vlog. I didn't hate Anthony's arc in this. His book with Kate is one of my favorites. And, it definitely emphasizes his connection to Sienna a lot more than there actually was in the book. But it'll be interesting how they play this out in the second season, which I'm assuming is going to follow more closely with Anthony's story. It'll just be interesting to see. I'm interested to see it. I also really liked Benedict's arc. I thought, giving him the artist angle. We did get a little bit of this friend who has this queer relationship that has this like open marriage. I thought it was really interesting to see that there was like a different lifestyle happening and for them to show that, because that was definitely something happening back in the Regency era. It was definitely happening. I wish I could have seen a little bit more of it, or to see like if that was something he was interested in. Like I was wondering if they were like trying to play Benedict up as maybe bi, which would have been an interesting take. I wouldn't have had anything a problem with that, except for the fact that he ends up in a relationship with a woman. So there was some concerns about queer baiting on that. So I don't know if that's something they're actually going to explore or consider, but I wasn't totally opposed to the idea. And I just think it was an interesting thing to add to the show in Benedict's arc, and might set him up for marrying someone who's not considered part of the norm. That's all I'll say about his story. I don't want to give too much away. And then we have Daphne. I mean, I felt for Daphne. I felt for Daphne at the end of the 7th episode. She's crying. She's devastated. She thinks she's had her last chance of actually ever getting pregnant. I felt for her, but also I was a little bit annoyed at her because, I don't know, getting pregnant from that kind of situation is really terrible and gross. So I kind of was like, that scene was super heartbreaking, but also I didn't want to feel sympathetic for her. I didn't want to feel sympathetic for her, and I didn't like that as the audience you were supposed to feel that way, when it was like, no, but you took advantage of him. This is not okay. You shouldn't get pregnant from the situation. So I was glad that, I mean, I knew that was going to happen in the book too, but I just didn't really like how it played out. Again, there's no consequences for her actions and no apology for her actions, and that still really upsets me. I did kind of like the fact that she confronts her mother on her mother telling her nothing. I really appreciated that. I definitely think they played it a lot more dramatic. I think in the book it's meant as a funny thing, because Violet's conversation with her is really hilarious in the book, even funnier. But they kind of took a more dramatic turn with it in confronting her, being like, "You prepared me for nothing," and I had to respect Daphne for that, and I'm not gonna lie. And I had to respect for Violet to be like, yeah, you're right. I screwed up. I really, really liked Violet in this series. I think they did Violet really, really well. Love for Violet all across the board. So yeah, that was a really cool scene. I liked the garden. The Featheringtons coming in with the scandal of what they did for Marina. So there's a huge rewrite that they did for Lady Whistledown announcing Marina's pregnancy. Lady Whistledown prides herself, as you discover in the books, prides herself on not revealing secrets that could hurt people or being intentionally cruel to people who might not necessarily deserve it. She was cruel to people who deserve it, Cressida being one of them. But she really prided herself on not doing that to people. So it deviates from the book by revealing Marina's pregnancy. So I think Lady Whistledown is a little bit different in the series compared to the books, except the reveal is the same. However, I understood the reasoning. I understood why she did it. I understood why she felt trapped in a corner. She was trying to protect Colin, and she was trying to prevent this disaster, this like sham of a marriage from happening. So I got all of her, understood all of her reasonings, but it was just still a little bit on a more meaner side of Lady W than Lady W usually does. The other point I wanted to make is Eloise thinking that the modiste is Lady W was really hilarious and funny. I could really appreciate that. I also liked Eloise's arc in this series. It was a lot of fun to see. I also liked that Francesca came back. Like, everyone forgot about Francesca, and then she comes back, which is kind of great because Francesca's kind of not really a huge part of the Bridgertons. But it was nice to see, like, them kind of reintroduce her after she's been away. Maybe we'll get a little bit more of that. And then the last episode, her throwing the ball and them, having a big to do, them coming together in the rain and really try to talk it out. I loved that. I loved it. I loved that whole scene. Lady Danbury being like, all right, we gotta go. Like, so great. Everything. It was so staged beautifully. Their dancing, like how it was filmed, was just gorgeous. I loved everything about that scene. I loved everything about it. I didn't like that Simon didn't say I love you back. I mean, we already knew he did that to the queen, but he never directly said it to her. And kind of disappointed in that. That's always a great moment for me in a romance novel, is the guy saying I love you and expressing his feelings. It always gets me every single time. So I really wanted that from the series and the show. Did not happen. And they still came back together. But I do think that he like expressed that he loved her by the fact that like he's willing to get pregnant with her and put this aside and be happy with her and make a choice. I really love that they homed in on that particular piece. And, you know, Violet Bridgerton said that love is a choice, which is so, so true of relationships and of marriage. And I loved that they brought that piece in. I really enjoyed that. Still think the scene kind of like makes a little bit of a sour note to the sweetness of the ending. For me, the consequences of that should have played out better, in my opinion. But overall, I still really enjoyed this. I really, really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the last 2 episodes. We get a lot of family time. I really enjoyed the piece where Colin goes off to travel. Even though I didn't love Marina's arc and Marina's story throughout all this, I still really liked how the writers like paralleled the circumstances between Marina and Daphne. And Daphne feeling really sympathy for Marina and trying to help her, I thought was a really great addition to the series as well. So I liked how the writers like paralleled those two stories. And I liked seeing Sir Philip for like the 2 seconds that we saw him. He was just so sweet. And I like him, love him so much. He's a hero in a later book for somebody else. Oh, and it makes Marina's story just a little bit more sad and bittersweet. I'm surprised they'd revealed Lady Whistledown so soon. I mean, granted, the books are like 15 years old, 20 years old. So, I mean, they were going to have to like reveal it. Anyone could look it up if they wanted to. So, I understand why they revealed it in season 1. And who knows, they might not get Julie Andrews for season 2. Like, they're covering their bases. So, I get it. I think the fact that you didn't know for the first 4 books was very exciting, though, and made for a very different experience. And I'm just really interested to see what they're going to do with it. I think they set up some really good things. They set up, you know, they're obviously setting up for Anthony's story. Keep in mind that there's been bee imagery throughout this whole series. So there was a bee in the beginning, the very first episode. There was a bee somewhere in the middle, I forget where. There was a bee embroidered on Benedict's collar at one point, and then you get a bee at the end. Like, I love the bee imagery. I love it so much, and it plays into Anthony's book, which I don't know exactly how they're going to do, but I like what they've set up, and I'm really interested to see where it goes, and I would be very excited to see who they cast as Kate. Really interested to know what the fate of the Featheringtons is gonna come to too. So many interesting things. They haven't confirmed a second season, but there has been apparently plans for filming, like in the works. So, not officially announced a second season, but there's filming plans happening. So, there's high hopes that the second season will happen. And for that, I'm very, very excited about to see how they're going to play those out and to see more of what they're going to do with the books. And hopefully get a little bit more, and then hopefully we'll get some more scenes of just Simon and Daphne being happy. I would love to see that later in the show. I do think the end scene of them having their boy at the end was also really came all together and really concludes Simon's story really, really well. All in all, I think as an adaptation, it was really well done. Really, really well done. I'm so pleased. My historical romance loving heart is so overjoyed. And I just cannot wait for this to lead to other fantastical romantic things. Yay! And that is all my thoughts today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw and want to see more from me, please subscribe and follow me on those social medias and like and comment on this video. I would so appreciate it. Thanks again so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!